Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
Donald Trump certainly has a stranglehold on the Republican Party, ladies and gentlemen. Not only did Thomas Massie lose by 10 points, not only, in my opinion, is it election fraud, $20 million of outside money spent to get rid of Thomas Massie. They say that's not fraud. My opinion is that it is. You make up your own mind. But now Republican Andy Barr triumphed in the Kentucky Senate primary. 62% of the vote after he got Donald Trump's endorsement. You know, the primary was held to determine who is going to be Mitch McConnell's successor. And I guess there was conflicts with Nate Morris at first, but then, of course, he withdrew. And, well, they say, I guess the interesting thing about Nate is now he's going to be an ambassador. Yeah, so that's kind of interesting because if you promise ambassadorships and you get rid of some of the competition, is that election fraud to kind of create kind of a little bit of a bribe, James, where I say to you, listen, James, if you drop out, buddy, I'll put you as an ambassador somewhere. You'll have a good place to land, bro. What do you think of that kind of stuff for election manipulation?
Well, I mean, these are backroom deals that happen all the time, and they go back for time immemorial.
And how much of it's fraud versus how much of it's fine?
Well, I mean, it depends on what your price is. If you're content with being an ambassador rather than a congressman or a senator, and you agreed to that, that's the deal. So I don't know. I mean, this is people are offered things all the time, even with companies.
They are, and I bring that up because Americans need to decide what really election fraud is. If you spend $20 million of Israeli foreign international money to get a congressman gone because you don't like him and you want a vendetta against him, and then if you go ahead and in another race, you know, twist things and say that people will give you special favors if you drop out and everything else, this win is also seen as a testament to the influence of Trump's, quote, endorsements in the Republican primaries. Now, is it endorsement? Is it money? Is it special favors and bribes? Or all of the above, James?
I want to answer that, but I would just say again, at the risk of sounding repetitious, that the good news here is that the future is with the people like Massie, or at the very least, the people who carry a similar message. And if what I was going to say, I don't know if I exactly.
And by the way, the evidence
point.
that you point for that is the numbers. It's the old people above 65 that really made Massie lose. The young people would have put him in office,
and overwhelmingly so. 18 to 29 year old demographic, 81% for Massie. So his issues,
even the middle group
are advancing
strongly for Massie.
That's exact. Well, yes, the tier just above that, 70.7%.
That's still huge. That's a landslide stuff.
Huge.
Yeah.
And so the future is with these ideas. That's what's I think everybody can take some encouragement with, because even with all of the AIPAC money, they were not able to penetrate the hearts and minds of the youth. And I think if Massie had run this race even 4 years from now, you're going to have enough of that oldest demographic. Well, they're going to be gone. I mean, you know, we all have to.
Unless they vote from nursing homes, and there's, you know.
Well, hey, eventually they might, they'll squeeze that lemon as long as they can. But
Yes,
as we know,
will.
all of us are going to be unshackled from this mortal coil one day. And, you know, obviously when you get into your 70s and 80s, you know, the clock is a little bit shorter. And so, yes, I mean, there is a future that comes where that demographic is going to exit the playing field, and it's going to be.
There is good news on the horizon. It's interesting. We'll see. Many people are just saying Andy Barr's the neocon. He's just a standard Republican and everything else. And, you know, I saw Nate speak at a TPUSA event, and I thought Nate was a good guy. It's sad that he dropped out, but he'll be an ambassador.
Well,
and, you know, at least for his career, it doesn't make sense to run if Donald Trump endorses somebody else, you best step out of the way, because the good old boy network of the Republican Party. And it might just reward you if you do that, James.
Well, it's interesting, too, about Trump is that, of course, he's gone in 2 years, and the Republicans are set up to be eviscerated in November. Now, you do have this trick that they pulled, and I'm for it. I think it was shrewd and it was brilliant with the Trump Supreme Court gutting the Voting Rights Act, and now you've got all of these conservative states predominantly in the South that are redistricting, and that's going to pick them up some seats that they certainly would have lost otherwise. But I'm not so sure in these other swing districts, how many of those seats that they won in 2024 they're going to hold. So, the fact that Trump does have this vice-like grip on the Republican Party still in his twilight couple of years, going up to a midterm that he's almost certainly going to lose. At least the party will, and then he's going to get impeached. And then we know how those last 2 years are going to play out because we've seen this movie before.
You're talking lame duck of all lame ducks, right? So who's it going to be in 28? Are we going to talk about J.D. Vance? Are we going to talk about Marco Rubio? Are we going to talk about Donald Trump Jr.? Is there kind of a plan to say, look, J.D. Vance will be the president, Marco Rubio will be the VP pick for that slot, and then hopefully they can hold on to it 8 more years with Vance and maybe 8 more years with Rubio? And what do you think the strategy going to 2028 is?
Well, it's too early to say. You're going to have to at least see how November goes before you can even begin to materialize that. But I think these are the two you mentioned are the heir apparents right now. But, 2 years before 2016, on this day in 2014, if we were asking that question, nobody would have said, well, you're not going to believe this, but Donald Trump's going to run. He's going to come down
the escalator.
So you just never know what's going to happen. And I'm not trying to dodge it.
They even mocked him that he wasn't viable then, even when he did decide to run, right?
So it's just too early to say, because if we were having this conversation, 6 months before the midterms in 2014, nobody would have been able to predict that. But you want this other thing about
why do you think
a
lame duck president like Donald has such a stranglehold on the party, though? That's a little.
That's what I'm saying. It does seem. Well, I mean, you could say he has a stranglehold on the party. It's really a little bit more like AIPAC had the stranglehold. I mean, Trump's endorsement does matter, and he has a pretty good record in these primaries. There's no doubt about that. But I don't know if his endorsement alone, if they hadn't activated the third column in this race, would have been enough for Massie, who's a popular one. Now, in some of these other districts, if it's, a toss-up, his endorsement is enough to decide it. But it was his endorsement coupled with 8 figures of
here's the elephant.
Foreign money.
The elephant in the room. How much control does Israel have over the United States politics? And if I bring this up, am I dead?
It's not good for anybody's health, that's for sure. And it's certainly not good.
We better move along to some other topics. Otherwise, they have more Arkansas-sided, right?
I think you can certainly say beyond a shadow of a doubt that they have more influence over politics than any other person or interest group. There is no doubt about it.
Including Donald?
Well, I think that they run Donald.
Because we need Donald's spite to be against Israel then. And, he can't let them upend him.
Well, he wouldn't have been elected if he wasn't going to play ball on that. And, I mean, we've talked about this for years. I mean, yes. I think, the unspoken deal was – we'll let you do what you want domestically, or at least say things that your base likes with regards to domestic issues, but you are going to go into Iran. And
when push comes to shove, as long as you do our bidding, we'll let you just kind of babble at the mouth and say anything you want to, especially when most of it you won't really deliver on anyway. You'll just talk about it.
And he has, there are some things that Trump has done that we wouldn't have had otherwise. We can point to a lot of the good still. I know when everybody's upset about something, it's, only the bad we can focus on. If you just take a dispassionate, sober assessment of the things, I'm still glad for the last 10 years. But this is a very big.
Would you rather have Donald or would you rather have Kamala and?
Well,
company?
I mean, we've talked about this. Well, I'll give you just one example. If you say, well, what are you talking about, James? Well, I mean, he could have done more on deportations. He hasn't deported. He hasn't deported people, but the border is secure. And as far as the DOJ goes, would you rather have a weaponized DOJ?
He's deported some people, though, and he's allowed it to be a little bit of self-deportation, too, which in many ways is good. At least it's not as heavy-handed as some thought it might be, right?
We've talked about the pros and cons for 10 years. It'll continue. We've done full 3-hour shows on my weekend broadcast about it, so there's just too much to get into. But I'll just give you one other example. Would you rather have a weaponized DOJ being handled by the radical left that's going to go after people like the J6ers? You want to have a DOJ that's going after groups like the Southern Poverty Law Center? I mean, there is a big difference here. And so, but that being said, you mentioned Kentucky, again, the other race in Kentucky, and I'd like to ask you this because this isn't one that I followed nearly as intently, but you did have Barr as the pick. He was Trump's pick to succeed Mitch McConnell, who was always a fly in the MAGA ointment, and this was not McConnell's chosen successor. So Trump gets a win there. In this race, I would just say I doubt there's very much good about Barr that we could hang our hats on, but it'd be
Just a
impossible
neocon.
for him to be worse than. Is it possible for him to have been worse than McConnell? I mean, in that when you're comparing it to that, maybe even that's a marginal gain.
Well, and that's part of the problem that I see for the Republicans is that their only claim now is, hey, we're better than the Democrats, and or our candidate might be a neocon, but it's better than the last neocon. And if that's what we're running people on, heaven help us, right? But that really seems to be the order of the day. Now, this is another interesting controversial twist. There's a $1.8 billion fund now that President Trump is putting together to aid alleged government victims, and it's sparking debate. We're going to come back and talk about that with James Edwards. So I think if anybody qualifies for some of that money, it'll be our dear friend James Edwards over at thepoliticalcesspool.org and our current co-host of the show. Hang tight, we'll talk about it. $1.8 billion. The Democrats are rioting over this.
Are you watching what's happening in our country and asking, what can I do? Join the John Birch Society in Salt Lake City, June 6th, for a powerful one-day conference. The day includes a host of respected speakers, 2 meals, and meaningful connections. You'll gain clarity on the issues and walk away with practical steps you can take to your community. Reserve your seat today at jbs.org/SLC26. That's jbs.org/SLC26.
Scott Bradley here. Most Americans are painfully aware that the nation is on the wrong track and in dire straits. Unfortunately, most political pundits only nibble around the edges when they claim to address the issues. Even worse, many of the so-called solutions are simply rewarmed servings of what got us into the mess we currently face. And the politicians think we're so gullible and naive that we'll buy their lies that they have reformed and now understand where they led us astray. Unfortunately, the truth of the matter is that they simply wish to continue to hold power. The solution to America's challenges is found in returning to the timeless principles found in the United States Constitution. My book and lecture series will reawaken in Americans an understanding and love of the principles which made this nation the freest, most prosperous, happiest, and most respected nation on earth. Visit topreservethenation.com and order my book and lectures to begin the restoration of this great nation.
And welcome back to Sam Bushman's Liberty Roundtable here on the Liberty News Radio Network. Be sure to support this. If you are upset about what happened to Massie last night, you're upset about what's going on in this country, I will say this about our enemies. They put their money where their mouth is, and everybody needs that support. I'm not saying we're going to muster $20 million worth of support for hard-hitting talk radio, but it is important.
Come on, that's what we need.
Hey, let's go for what we can get, and let's go for as much as we can get because it is deserved. And if you are not building your own institutions, your own media, your own parallel communities, your own issue advocacy organizations, you're not on the field. And it is a treacherous game, and it is high stakes, and it is difficult to do it without support. So please do support the work of this network at either libertynewsradio.com or libertyroundtable.com. Sam has been doing this for a long, long time, and he is battle-tested and battle-proven. But with regards to money, the slush funds never wash up against our banks. That's for sure. But we've got a $1.8 billion fund to aid alleged government victims. And so here's the scoop. The Trump administration has established a $1.8 billion fund dubbed the Anti-Weaponization Fund, intended to compensate individuals who claim to have been wrongfully targeted by federal agencies amid growing scrutiny and debate.
I got a question.
Yep.
Can Thomas Massie use it?
A little consolation parachute there. Well, that's interesting, isn't it?
Todd Blanche,
the acting attorney general and former lawyer for Trump, he's the one that's gotten the credit for going after the SPLC, by the way, defended the fund in a heated Senate appropriations hearing, stating it would serve people across the political spectrum, not solely Trump supporters. I'm calling BS on that.
That's why I'm wondering, does it apply to Thomas Massie? Just saying.
Well, I'm more worried, does it apply to us? But anyway, the fund's establishment follows a controversial agreement where Trump dropped a $10 billion, that is $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS in exchange for the creation of the fund from the Unlimited Judgment Fund. That's what it's called. Judgment
Fund. You drop a $10 billion and you get $1.8 billion for you and your buddies? It sounds like a bad deal.
That's negotiating, though. You asked for 10, but what you really wanted was 1. And
you got 2 almost.
You got 2 you wouldn't have had otherwise. A move that legal experts and opposition lawmakers have caused the misuse of public money intended for legally justified settlements. Now, they had all this with U.S. aid for years. They have their slush funds. They use government taxpayer money to fund all of their stuff. This is a different way to do it. And I will say this.
That's for sure.
Sam, if he's going to reward his friends. And that's what he's doing. And I think this is definitely, going to go to people that backed him up, people that did what he wanted them to do. This is going to be payouts for them. Maybe it actually does trickle down to real Americans like J6ers and things like this, people who were targeted. He said it's called the Anti-Weaponization Fund, people who were targeted by the weaponized Biden Department of Justice who were Trump supporters. Maybe some of this trickles down to real people. I hope it does. But I definitely don't think it's for folks like us. It's going to be people who were MAGA all the way, people who were in the administration, people who suffered as a result of the left's weaponization. He's right about that. And as far as it goes, hey, if I got a big windfall, if I won the lottery, I would share it with you and other allies, So I kind of get it. I kind of get it. I mean, I don't have that big of a deal.
But I'm just saying, if James Edwards was accused in court of being the leader of the KKK, and they said we know it's patently false, but yet they can say that anyway because it's hyperbole or it's whatever. And based on the company James keeps, Aesop's fables and everything else, that we can say this against him. I'm saying that's using government against the people. That's using the courts, the media against James Edwards. He certainly deserves a part of that $1.8 billion. And I then have been, and James Edwards have been, jointly reported to Congress as the nexus. Think about that word, the nexus, of anti-government and hate in America 2 years in a row on the congressional record. You kind of go, that fund should apply to me too, shouldn't it, folks? Think of the besmirching of my character that causes, James.
Well, it would be interesting to see in that blurb that we read from. I'd like to see exactly how far-reaching and how much the
well, I believe it'll be a little bit like the whitehouse.gov/new media. You sign up for that thing, and have you heard of Peep since?
No, yeah, that was all a farce.
It'll be like that, James.
A lot of it
sounds good, but it'll never really come to guys like you and me,
No, it's gonna go to the cronies in the administration or people who probably were wronged. And of course, with some of the things you're talking about media. Does it extend to people who have been libeled and defamed by the media, which is what Trump going back to 2016 Trump. He was talking about there being some restitution for that, and does it apply to people who were targeted by these smear merchants like the SPLC? I'm thinking it's just going to be DOJ stuff, but we'll see. I mean, and we'll see. It might just go straight to the Trump family. Is where it's going to go. We'll see how much he shares at all.
And that's what you're going to see a lot of. No matter what, you're going to see Trump's family, his close allies get it. It won't apply to folks like us who, in my opinion, really deserve it because we've been wronged. A lot of the J6ers should get some of that money. A lot of other people that have been wronged. For example, Donald Trump could just make all of his own IRS records and allegations just disappear through this deal. What about other people that have, got IRS issues too and stuff? There's a lot there that we could discuss, but $1.8 billion is certainly a lot of money for the Trump administration to establish this for. And what will really be the results? I don't know.
Well,
but,
I'll tell you.
Todd Blanche defending it, and, they say it's a controversial agreement where Trump, did this deal with the IRS and everything else. And, why did the Democrats attack Trump like that in the beginning? Now they're going to pay out $10 billion, well, no, only $1.8 billion. But who's going to pay it? We, the taxpayers now, James? So you're not going to get any of that money, but you're certainly going to pay for it.
Yeah, exactly. Who is funding this, by the way? That's a very interesting point that people aren't talking about. I tell you, if we don't get any of it, the people who I would like to see get some of it or people like, I can't remember his name, but we both talked to him and you interviewed him, Biggie or whatever his name was, the guy from Arkansas who put his feet on Pelosi's desk and did some hard time for that. I mean, people like that is who I hope funds like this go to, but we'll see.
Amen. Because, whether they did foolish things or not, that doesn't equate to what they got. That wasn't fair or right or honorable. Moving to a couple of quick Tennessee stories, since you're from Tennessee, James. The headline says, Memphis Safe Task Force has a seizure of more than 1,500, quote, illegal firearms. They say federal and local law enforcement officials removed these firearms from the streets since September 2025. I didn't know there was all kinds of illegal guns on the streets there, James.
Memphis is an eye-opening thing to live here. You understand what happens when the demographics go third world and you've got all left-wing leadership in your city and county government. But I tell you, I could walk in the streets of downtown Memphis at night and feel halfway safe because it was last fall. We had a live streamer who came in, does a popular video show, and he wanted to tour Bill Street and tour Memphis with us because we're here. And we went down to Bill Street at night on a weekend, which, people haven't been able to do with any modicum of safety since, I was in high school or even before that. And it was patrolled every block. There was a phalanx of National Guardsmen, and Memphis has cracked down on crime, and there was a lot of it to crack down on. So when I read, they got 1,500 illegal firearms, I was like, what, from one house? So this is they have gotten better on cracking down, and there's still a long way to go. Memphis is a very dangerous place.
Yes, it is, ladies and gentlemen. Now the DEA also announcing a what do they call this? Federal fentanyl and firearms charges. It's in a Tennessee case. The DEA said that a Knoxville man was charged in federal court with fentanyl trafficking and firearms offenses as part of a narcotics enforcement effort. So they're cracking down on the war on drugs. Do you think they'll get to the bottom of that, James? Is it going to be all good, drug-free zone down there in Tennessee now?
I tell you, see, Knoxville's on the other side of the state. You never know what those people up in the mountains are doing. I like it down here where it's just smash and grabs and malt liquor. Down here in the Delta.
You like the simple crimes, don't you, James?
Yeah, that's right. It's not anything high-end like this.
All right, we got some good news to end the hour, though, James. I got to get to this.
All right.
UN Climate Panel moves away from what they call extreme RC8 or RCP8, I guess it is. They call it the warming scenarios. Trump's claiming vindication in this. Basically, the bottom line is, they told you that climate change or the global warming was the boogeyman forever. Now they're being forced to back away from those claims because none of them panned out. Al Gore's been discredited. Donald Trump's taking a victory lap saying, I told you so. The United Nations, quote, linked climate monitoring community has now shifted away from using these, quote, extreme statements. And they're saying, hey, you know what? These things aren't accurate anymore. And Donald Trump saying, I told you, and taking a victory lap. It's pretty good to at least have some of the truth come out on this. My question is, why did it take so long?
Well, it's always nice to have 10 seconds of good news on any given hour-long show. But no, this is good. And there was a reason why they moved from calling it global warming to climate change. As long as I've been around, it gets hot in the summer and cooler in the winter, and that still seems to be the trend. So I'm happy to see this. I mean, all of that. You want to talk about a racket. Forget about $1.8 billion. I mean, what these freaks were doing worldwide.
They're in the trillions for decades.
It was only Europe that was footing the bill. Europe and, the extension of Western civilization that was doing it, paying for all these things. This Green New Deal, all this stuff, retrofitting every house and every car's got to be electric. It's sick. I mean, you can't. We need to get away from that.
Like Richard Mack says, we've gone way too far. James Edwards, thank you so much. ThePoliticalCesspool.org is his award-winning broadcast. Check out our broadcast on LibertyRoundtable.com, on Rumble, Twitter, X, True Social. We're everywhere, baby. Spread the word, share the love, and God save the Republic of the United States of America.